There you go.
And I'd like to, good afternoon and welcome those who were, maybe we got slim pickings this afternoon. But please remember that this board appreciates participation from you. If you have comments throughout the board meeting or work session, please stand, state your name and address, and your comments will be heard. See, I call the meeting to order, and for a roll call of board members, Eretz, I'm here. Baki is absent. Evans is absent. Gibbs?
Here.
Lalonde?
Present.
Smith is absent. And Timbo?
Here.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. It is made up of a routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have a significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion or vote by any board member. Does any board member have a desire for separate discussion of any items in the consent agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous approval. Okay, director's report.
Yes, well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you all had a good summer. It's good to be back in the swing of things with board meetings. Summer went well for us. July, we had about 16,500 passengers. Still probably 2,000 to 3,000 light off where we should be pre-COVID. Some of that being the border being closed majority of July, really all of July. And then we were down a couple flights. We didn't have Chicago this year. We didn't have a second Minneapolis or a larger Minneapolis plane. But the flights we did have were very full, probably about as full as we could get. Allegiant still had some empty seats. That's primarily because of the Canadians, because quite a few of those folks have vacation homes or second homes in Phoenix, and so their traffic was a little light. Alaska started to tail off quite a bit. Obviously, the West Coast is still pretty COVID shy, and a lot of their destinations started to mask up again mid-July. So I think that tourism flow was hurt in both directions, with people not feeling like they wanted to travel to Montana if they're in California, because they're getting a constant onslaught of COVID news, and then people from here not wanting to go there and wear masks in LA and some of the other bigger destinations. So all in all, summer was pretty good. Nearly fully recovered in July. My feeling on August seems to be that it seems like it backed off quite a bit as COVID has increased again. I think people are canceling some trips, certainly work trips, that type of thing, are not coming back at the speed we would hope. And so as a result, we're seeing some schedule changes again. Kind of an interesting time. I was worried a little bit about this with COVID. There was quite a few early retirements and buyouts that happened to get some of the senior pilots off the payroll. What has happened as they increased the schedule this spring is a lot of the regional airlines, the pilots were sucked into the main line pilots, and so there's a shortage of regional pilots. There's also a shortage of regional planes, which we've been talking about in the community for a long time, but one of the things I see imminently that I've been talking about now for probably 10 years is I do believe there's going to be, on the tail end of this COVID recovery, a lot of traditional routes that can't be sustained around smaller communities. And so my concern, and as I've expressed it many times in this community, is even the air service we're used to having is at play. And so this fall, after we get through October, we won't have either a second Alaska flight or a Minneapolis flight. And I think going forward, that's going to be an increasing struggle to maintain all of those hub connections that we traditionally had. There just aren't the planes and there aren't the pilots to fly all those routes. And so airlines are increasingly moving into communities like a Bozeman or a Missoula, where they can put a mainline plane on that with fewer iterations. And so that is the solution to the problem for them. Unfortunately, a community like us can't support mainline in many destinations. And so I do see over the next 5 years a lot of pressure for communities our size to grow or die. And I could even foresee a time when we might be down to Salt Lake and Denver. And so, I think that's a real concern. It's something I've been concerned about for a long time. I think the remedy to that is growth. And I think, it's like many things in our community, certainly as we've seen in the COVID times, losing retailers and restaurants and other services. There's consolidation throughout all of those industries, including airlines. And if we can't put on another 10, 20,000 people in this community population-wise, that trend's likely to continue. Because just like the restaurants of the world, the Golden Corrals, they're looking at communities that have that population growth because the piece of the pie that they're competing for is getting smaller and smaller, especially the retailers. The number of pants that Macy's used to sell years ago per capita is getting smaller and smaller. And so they need more per capita to make that equation work for them. Same is true with airlines. Their planes are getting bigger, they're getting fewer pilots, and they want to sell premium tickets. And so if you don't have economic growth, such that you have people traveling to Turkey and buying first-class seats to New York, that's a lot less revenue for those airlines. And as they collect more data, more and more data through the different avenues that are now available for them to see where those high-value customers are and what their purchasing preferences are and what they're searching for and what they're trying to do, that's going to increasingly highlight those communities that A, don't have population growth, and B, don't have economic growth. Both are true here. We used to be middle of the pack in average salary, per median salary per family. We're now the lowest in the state of the big cities. Same with population growth. When you look back 10 years, the next community to us in terms of population growth is Helena, and they grew 11 times our growth rate over 10 years. And so, we've got to find a way as a community, I think, to continue to grow economically. In addition to that, on the tourism side, we've really got to find a way as a community to attract those fly-in passengers. We haven't seen the growth in that, I think for 4 or 5 years. I know with Laura, when you were involved with the tourism board, we have trailed the state in room night growth for a decade, and dramatically trailed. I mean, it's night and day. And so, we've got to find a way to change that equation also, so that we can get more people in here over the 3 or 4 months that we can get them in here. Great Falls probably has a little bit longer season than some of those other communities, thanks to hunting and fishing, which are abundant here. Not as many opportunities in some of those other communities. So, we probably have a legitimate 6-month season. And so, building that piece of it as a community is really important in the future too. And so, I mentioned I had these same comments for the tourism board just last week. That this is an imminent concern, and it's now here. I mean, things I've been saying for the last 10 years, and I expect it to take place over the next 10 years, are happening now. We are seeing a shortage of flying new pilots, and we're losing routes that we've had for better part of deregulation. Concerning time, it's an interesting time. As I think I've said to some of you in the last few months, I don't think I've seen a time where there was more opportunity for the airport in the 10 years I've been here in terms of growth. The traditional airlines that Montana would have normally seen 10 years ago is evolving quickly. And there's opportunities with new carriers and old carriers that didn't used to serve Montana. Even American wasn't here 10 years ago. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to diversify that our air service, which is what needs to happen. But it's going to increasingly be on the small side, small ball type of growth. A Dallas flight for the summer, getting Chicago back next year for the summer, maybe a Portland flight eventually. just, maybe a couple days a week, attracting a low-cost carrier here, maybe 3 days a week. That type of success that we can continue to build. And each time we slice that, we grab another affinity group and associate them with Great Falls, right? Dallas right now probably doesn't have any idea, about Great Falls, but if we can get that service, it's funny, you probably heard as much around the community as I did this year. People were finding Great Falls because the rental cars were $500 in Bozeman. And so they were literally paying more per day for their rental car in Bozeman than they paid for their ticket to get to Bozeman. And so, we heard lots of stories this summer. We got very fortunate. Our herds here locally did an outstanding job of finding some cars, and they happened on some cars by accident. Delivery got brought here instead of another airport, and he quick ran them out, so we kept them. That really brought a lot of traffic through Great Falls. So there is a lot of fluidity in the growth, and so if we can begin to build some of those new routes, that's going to help us go forward and really get back to where we were back in 14 and 15 when we were at the high point. Get the Canadian border back open. If we can get another flight or two, which I think is possible in the next few years, we can grow the market through the presence of others. But I think it's going to take the presence of others to get the traditional placeholders here in town motivated to do a better job of keeping the flights here. And I just think that's a reality we're all going to grapple with over the next 10 years of air service.
Is it time appropriate maybe for some type of interim update to the city and county in some form?
Yeah, I think.
Orderly, given that this is going to happen pretty soon.
Yeah, the city has an election coming up here shortly with 2 new members, and the mayor's actually challenged right now too. So my thought was, that might be good timing shortly after that with them. But I was thinking, now that we're back in session for the year, I'd probably reach out to the county now that they have their empty seat filled and see if we could get on their agenda.
Or another option is to meet with all the candidates and make it a campaign issue. Literally, if it becomes a campaign issue and they talk about it, then that's a way to make it an issue. I don't know how many candidates there are, if that's achievable.
I don't know what they ended up with candidate-wise.
I think the mayor's just
One
one
for
on the
mayor,
mayor.
but there's 2 or 3, I think, for city council.
Yeah, or 4.
Might be even 4.
Might be worth it, I don't know. Reaching out to them and just seeing if they're willing to meet with you, discuss some potential issues.
Yeah, I think that's,
One of them may take it on as, I don't know if it's the one you want, but I don't know who's running. I know Owen's not going to be.
he's retiring.
He's
Yeah,
retiring.
him and Commissioner Mogul.
Almost.
Also
Okay.
retiring,
Okay.
yeah. So the candidates that are there are all new candidates.
Oh, they're all new people. Do we know any of them?
Susan.
Susan who?
Yeah, Susan Wolf, or is it?
Oh, Susan Wolf did sign up at the last minute. Yeah, I'd forgotten that.
Oh,
Susan Wolf
from community college.
yeah. I think you're right about that. Yeah,
Meet with her.
yeah.
She's not, no rules against meeting with a candidate.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll find one.
Oh, she'll be good. She'll be good.
But no, I think it is an important issue that we do need to get out there more. In fact, I'll talk to Shane about maybe doing a quarterly lunch and, just some comments because, it's kind of here.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We got to get ahead of it instead of reacting to it.
Right.
That's,
Right, yeah.
because there's been some opportunities that are on the table that, it could be tourism opportunities, a distillery, a cheese factory, some other things that people are fighting. I don't know if they're good things or bad things, but there are opportunities.
It's changed. It's one direction or the other, who knows which. but
People
it's
love going to
changed.
distilleries and
Yeah, for
tasting
sure.
and cheeses and
For
stuff.
sure.
So.
It was interesting. I had a conversation with an outgoing tourism person just the other day. They're leaving the tourism department, but he's kind of was on the front lines when people would come in and ask questions about the community. And he was saying 3 or 4 people would come in a week, and they were just really excited about Great Falls. Like, this is great. And and I've long said it's not a product problem. It's not a product problem. We have a good product. It's it's definitely someplace people would visit. It's definitely someplace people would move. But frankly, the issue is a lack of marketing. It just is. There's no messaging out there. No one knows what Great Falls is. And I always tell people, next time you're on vacation and you strike up a conversation with your waitress or someone, somebody you meet on the street, ask them where Great Falls is. Don't tell them what state's that in, No one knows.
Well,
Because they've never heard of it.
you and the tourism board are the only really people investing in marketing, right? And that's not a lot.
Well, right, and you know, a lot of, you know, the tourism group, I mean, their mission is really to fill hotel rooms. So, I mean, a lot of their marketing doesn't even get out of the state,
Yeah.
you know, and so.
You don't have a big budget.
There isn't anyone reaching out. I mean, and that's part of the problem. And then, you know, I mean, we spend a lot of money on studies, right? I mean, you know, as a community, we're constantly studying what the next thing is instead of, you know, doing the next thing. You know, I mean, that's part of the issue. I've said it since I've been here, is we spend a lot of time trying to make the megaphone louder, right? We take it apart and try to make it louder, but then we never use it.
There's no leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So, and we're starting to see that challenge manifest. I mean, you know, we're losing a lot of vacant space up and down the street now, and you know, we're starting to lose some of that traditional air service. So, I mean, I think it's a critical time.
Because I think I mean, I'm a numbers guy, but, you know, you say that 20% type of growth, or what'd you say, 10 to 20?
10 to 20,000 people.
Oh,
you know, I think
over
10 years. I mean, you got to get, you know,
okay.
Yeah.
But getting back to that, then, if we had, okay, you know, these numbers aren't obviously perfect, but if we could have like updates, like, hey, we're behind. If this is our goal, we have a goal of this,
Right.
if that's the goal,
Yeah.
if that's the goal, to keep this kind of service
Right.
and to not lose the service, more than even expanding, but not losing. And you know which flights. You're not going to go to Twin Cities direct.
Right.
You can't go to SeaTac direct.
Right.
Okay? Maybe that doesn't affect a lot of people, but if it did, lay those, we're behind. Okay, next December, let's do an update. Oh, we're not on schedule.
Right.
We're here and we needed to be here. Let's do it again. And be on the front page of the Tribune, if the Tribune's ever still around or has anything to do with Great Falls. But have it, be right in front.
Yeah.
We're behind. I mean, we have all this crap about COVID and all these things that we got all these stats and all these numbers every day. If that was out in front saying, okay, guys, we're not going to make it up in the last year. So either we're on track for this kind of growth, whatever it is, but we all know it. The people that are all here know that.
Yeah.
Read, and then at least, oh, we aren't, okay, good, or
Yeah.
we're way behind, but all of a sudden it'll be too late. I just see it as, oh, how are we gonna gain this in the last?
And that's really where we're teetering. I mean, it's no different than the Golden Corral, right? I mean, they don't want to be in a community with no population growth, because that means they're not gaining any market share. In fact, they're likely losing it because new places open. You know, so, you know, that's the problem is, you know, the population hasn't grown at all. You know, and so, I mean, a community, you know, I mean, all the airlines, they don't want to invest in static traffic. You know, that's not their game. I mean, they want to amortize their costs over more people. That's, you know, because costs are always going to go up. They've got to pay their people more than they've ever had to pay them now, right? I mean, and yet the base is the same. And now the business travel's gone. So now you're relying on the $200 fare to San Diego. You know, so I mean, the revenue is coming down and their costs are going up. And then there's no activity to amortize that over. You know, it's a losing equation. No business can operate like that.
And how we've driven down that average ticket price in Great Falls over the years. I mean, you don't have to be a CPA to figure out that's going the other direction, and probably fairly quickly. I mean, if your only route is to Salt Lake to go out here, or that's going to fill up, and then the prices will, you know, once we get to 80%, those numbers will go as high as they can.
Yeah,
and so it's not just convenience that we're going to lose in Great Falls. We're going to lose
pricing. Absolutely. I mean, the way we keep the ticket pricing down is by creating competition. You know, you may not have competition for direct service to Salt Lake, but every hub beyond that you do. You know, on both Denver and Salt Lake, and you know, you add Dallas into the mix. That's what keeps the price down. You know, because you got everybody's competing for Shreveport right now. Delta has Shreveport. You're not going to get there any other way.
Right.
You know, and it's a ridiculous fare. You know, but yeah, Dallas into the mix. Now there's a one-stop through Dallas. I mean, that's how we change the dynamic. But you know, doing that means that we've got to attract more people. Because sure, we can get more tourists up here 3 months. You know, maybe even 6. But the rest of the year, it's going to have to be driven with people that live here, or some reason they're coming here for work. You know, I mean, that's what fills the seats the rest of the year. And every other community around us has that. I mean, they have that growth. You know, 11 times our growth rate in 10 years is the next closest. Some of them are 60 times our growth rate.
What, 2% over the last 10 years?
Yep.
2 to 4%.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely a challenge, and, you know, I agree. I mean, it is something we need to be more, you know, and we have been passing that message now for nearly a decade.
It'd be nice if you could put some numbers together based on the COVID retirements and what's going on in the industry now, and what the projections are, and they say, hey, we gotta act now or it's gonna get pretty grim.
I mean, I don't know that there's numbers, you know, 'cause, I mean, the airlines are gonna tell you, you know, a whole lot about what's in the
Well, you
sausage.
can look at the number of pilots that retired during, well, they won't release that?
No, I mean, we don't have access to, you know, anything like that.
Oh, I thought
You
they
know,
would.
No, we wouldn't get access to anything like that. I mean, what you see is, you know, I mean, there's a broad statements about, oh, Delta, you know, American has furloughed X many pilots.
Does the FAA keep databases of total number of pilots?
I don't know. I don't know if they have, I don't know if they would know who's current, you know, who's furloughed and who's not.
No,
But-
they wouldn't track that.
They wouldn't
Yeah.
track it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of data, I mean, what we can see is our numbers. You know, we know how many seats there are, you know, yeah, I mean, in terms of the macroeconomics of the industry, a lot of that stuff isn't
I
anything.
mean, Vince would know some data on United, but he's probably not allowed
Yeah,
to say anything
proprietary,
publicly.
basically.
Yeah.
The bigger lines, that's sensible. We're going to keep that pretty
Okay.
close to our chest.
And occasionally they pull people out, you know, they'll go back and ask people to come back, but, yeah, I think, you know, the retirements, I don't know how that works. Once you're inactive, are you off payroll, you can't come back, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah,
That's correct.
You have to get current again.
right. And if you're furloughed, then, you know, you're still on contract, they still can bring you back.
There's probably pilot union rules.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
is-
exactly. It's pretty strong. So.
Yeah, but
You go to the bottom of the list and no one wants to come back and do that.
back over to the good news side, in 2 weeks, we're gonna have almost all the airline planners in town for the first time, probably, you know, maybe even the last time. I mean, it's pretty awesome to have this opportunity to bring them here. And so we did have a last minute cancellation. American won't be here. They canceled almost all their fall conferences. They're doing a major reshuffle of their entire network. You know, our dream was we would have come into this month with a SCSD grant announcement and have had American here to talk about Dallas service next summer. The SCSD grants came out mid-month in August, and Helena got the only Montana grant. This year, nobody got more than one grant per state, and they tended to favor smaller communities. And so our consultants tell us that's kind of what, you know, what he thinks. We want to look at, when we get a chance to get the public versions of those proposals, we definitely want to look through those and see what else we can see. But their proposal was to get American service to Phoenix, you know, which, I mean, hopefully they'll get something out of that grant. You know, I don't know that anyone has Phoenix in Montana from American, but it is a hub, so we'll see. You know, the good news is we've got all the airline planners coming up here in 2 weeks, and we'll be taking them around the state and showing them our community, you know, what you'll have access to as a tourist from this community. We're running some folks up the glacier. We're running some folks doing some fly fishing outside of Craig. We've got the museums have all agreed to have them through for free. We've got an opening reception on the 14th at the CMR, and hopefully you guys can make that. It'll be a neat event. The mayor's going to welcome everyone, and we're going to have the Native American dancers from the high school perform. And so just a great opportunity to see some of the culture of the area that we have here in town. And of course, the museum is incredible, and so that'll be a great opportunity that night to get a chance to look through there. Really excited to have them here. We'll have meetings on the 15th with all of the airports and all of the airlines upstairs. We'll be doing what we call speed dating meetings. We meet with each carrier, make a presentation, discuss your air service and that kind of thing. So should be a really great opportunity to showcase some of what we have to offer. There's been a tremendous amount of turnover in the route planning ranks in the last couple of years, so we'll be getting acquainted with some new analysts, which is good too. So that's a great opportunity for us, and hopefully there'll be some good conversations that follow from that about Chicago, for example, and other things that we need to talk to those guys about. On the construction side, we've wrapped up the bathroom program. There's a few more ceiling tiles and things that need to be replaced upstairs, but for the most part, the construction is done. The 2 bathrooms on the secure side were done several months ago. The downstairs baggage claim ones were done midsummer, and then we had to move upstairs and get the 3rd floor done. So we're wrapping that up. On the parking side, we've got our equipment ordered. We'll be replacing the 2 manned lanes with automated tellers here in a couple weeks. We've ordered a decal system on the new machines. That'll have our seal on it, but it'll also be numbered so that you can see what order you're supposed to do things in. You know, number 1, insert the ticket. Number 2, credit card. Number 3, receipt. Help people kind of guide through that. We'll be putting some signs out there also in in-bag claim to tell people about the parking machines, since there's probably some people that haven't used them yet, even though 2 of the machines will be the exact same machines. I'm sure we have some people that haven't been using them. So we'll be trying to get some messaging out. We'll be putting a message over the loudspeaker telling everyone that effective October 1st, we'll be taking credit cards only, and we'll be operating self-pay, so you'll interact with the machine. Once we kind of get through that first round of messaging, I think probably maybe before Thanksgiving, we'll change the messaging over to tell them that we have the new app that you can pay on. We don't want to get both things going at the same time. That just seems like too much. But by the time we get to November, we'll start to transition that message into you can pay on your phone while you're in bag claim. And so that'll we'll roll that out right after that. So we've got a lot of work to do out there yet. Rod's guys trenched in the fiber line last week from the sign. We had fiber out to that big sign out there, but Republic had been operating off of a cell phone link out of that booth. Now that we're going to have to run camera service over that link, it was going to be too much to reliably use a cell link for, so we're going to go with a hard fiber line out to there, so that when we look at the cameras to have somebody in line that we're trying to help, we've got faster service to support those cameras. We had the consultant out last month, and they identified the camera locations where we'll have all the cameras for those lanes, so we can kind of see the close-up of what they're poking at on the machine, along with kind of a back picture to see the entire environment in the event they haven't pulled up to the loop, for example, that would open the gate, or they're not doing the machine right. We'll be able to see both those kinds of things and interact with them. So that project, a lot of the work will be done in the next couple of weeks.
Do they recommend not starting the app at the same time, or?
No, that was really, we wanted to kind of get people, acquainted with the machines first.
I think personally, I'd rather skip the machines and go straight to the app.
Sure. Yeah, I think we're just worried about too many messages, because we want to get the people that haven't used the machines understanding what the machine is for, because those are the same folks that aren't going to operate an app. So but yeah, I think
people are using the app downtown to park.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean that's how you pay for parking now.
Yeah, I haven't used it yet.
Yeah, I used it. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think we can probably roll that out fairly quickly after, but
Because you're waiting for your bags,
right.
You just stall it, and there's enough time to learn an app, because hopefully it's easy to use. You just put credit card information in, and
yeah, I would think you scan your tickets. What you do,
and the tickets are probably in the card, though, I imagine.
Well, that's what I think too. Is it's going to take a little bit for people to, and it's probably better they leave the ticket in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you don't lose it.
And that's standard practice.
Right. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay.
Shortly after we'll be rolling that out. But yeah, a big transition. It's exciting, scary, all those things, right?
Yep.
In Japanese, it's the same word for crisis and opportunity.
Okay.
Crisis-opportunity, I think that's what we're about to engage in. So, the utility project over there at the new warehouses, we're about done with design. The project should be ready to bid in a week or two. We've got the approvals. We got any approvals this week yet, Chris?
Only from the state, not from the city.
We did it from the state. Okay, so we have to bore under the road there. They won't let us cut the road, so we have to have a permit to do that. Then once we got approval from NDT, we had to go back to the city, to get their approval, because they wouldn't look at it until we had NDT's approval, which is, takes more time. We had hoped to bid that out by now, but approvals have taken a few extra weeks. Hopefully we'll get that approval next week and we'll be ready to bid. In talking to some folks on the construction side, there still remains a difficulty in finding both materials and people. Most of the local contractors are full. So what we're kind of planning is we'll likely bid this with a completion date of next spring, maybe June 1, June 15, something like that, to give them the ability to do the project at their leisure and their pace. And then we'll likely contract directly with the drilling company to try and get the borings in under the road post takes. We want to get them on the schedule this year, just in the event that next year's even busier. So we'll go ahead and get the casings in place so that the contractor will have a free, clear field to put the project in as they need to put it in. If we can get those borings in place, it keeps them from being reliant on another company. So we want to try and get that done this fall, and then get the thing bid out so that they can get in there as soon as the ground is ready next spring, or if they have a little bit of extra time this year, maybe they can get some of it done. The electric company will self-perform their work. That's pretty quick. It's already on the other side of the road, so we'll wait till spring for that. The gas company came back with a proposal for $3,600, and we told them if you can get it done, go ahead and get it done. We'll pay now, so we can get that one done. So water and sewer are the main things that we'll be contracting out. We're still talking to CenturyLink. They're kind of non-committal. They really would like to have customers before they do any work. I don't know how practical that'll be. I talked to the sheriff a few weeks ago, and they're interested in better internet service. So I'm kind of hoping we can team with them and do something to get data over there in voice. And then KD, which is the new internet provider here in town, called us a month ago and said that we had done a permit with them to cross our space further down towards the road that goes to the windmills. But they called about a month ago and said that they would be interested in extending utilities down to pick up our development. So hopefully in the spring we'll work with one of those guys to get that done. But yeah, that project's moving along, and we're finally getting close to final approval on that. On the hiring front, we did extend an offer to a new officer. He was supposed to start Monday, but he's moving from New York. And all of that, it looks like it might take a little bit longer. So he's going to be probably another week or two out. We're still trying to hire one additional officer. Laura's got some applications, but haven't quite found that right person yet to help us kind of move to 24-hour staffing. We also extended an offer to replace the airport accountant. That person starts tomorrow. Sydney Froberg. Did I say that? Froberg. Yeah. And so she'll be starting tomorrow, and hopefully at our next meeting. So we're definitely making some progress there. Exciting stuff. And that is about all I have on the director's report. So.
Any questions for John?
Did you guys ever have any luck with the senators and representatives? I know you mentioned you were going to maybe try to lobby them about working on getting that border open.
We did get responses from everybody, and Senator Daines did kind of use our letter. He invited us to a meeting, let's see, it was right before I left, probably about mid-July, and they had met with the administration to talk about the Canadian border, and it sounded like they weren't even thinking about it at the time, and so, it just sounds like it's kind of a back burner issue to get it fully open. And I don't know what the steps are going to be. It's seeming to me like, we're going to be in COVID frankly, it seems as though everyone's going to have to catch it. So, I think one way or the other.
But then you'll still need a vaccine shot.
Well, you'll still need that.
Well, herd immunity with our own immunity, but it won't be enough. Pfizer won't get a check. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it seems like it's going to be a good long time until things are normal.
Yeah.
But ideally by spring, the Canadians will be able to come back in pretty unrestricted. I don't know if that's realistic.
They're dying to come down here.
Yeah.
Everyone up there, they're just begging to come down.
Yeah.
Right after Christmas, that's when all the snowbirds come. They're waiting for that.
Well, and I made that point. I know Senator Tester uses the MSP flight, and so a couple weeks ago when I first heard that October it was going to go away for 6 months, I made that point is, hey, this is yet another reason the Canadian border is important to us is, Delta sees a good number of passengers, and not having that Canadian border isn't helping our numbers. And so hopefully that'll message will get back to him, and he'll hopefully help us out a little bit on that too. But yeah, it's not a good situation for Allegiant here, with that Canadian border shut. But of course, we're not the only community. Buffalo draws a lot of Canadians across. A lot of those northern tier states, even over in North Dakota, South Dakota. So, it'll be interesting. I'm really anxious to see, what Allegiant says about our performance when they're here in 2 weeks relative to their other spots. So far, we've been doing pretty well.
Anything else? Okay, on to the action items. First, need to ask if there are any agenda items that present a conflict of interest and consequently require a member to abstain from the discussion and vote. No? Okay, first item, capital purchase for baggage claim carpet replacement.
Yes, we want to get approvals as we get into the next phase of the terminal refresh project. We want to start thinking about the carpets in the building. The baggage claim area will largely be unchanged in the next round of terminal improvements. We don't have any real plans to change the carousel right now or increase the size of that area. We do need to do something with the door on the rental car side of the building. That's one of the challenges we've given the architecture crew is to look at some options for how we can break the wind over there. We still, even though the doors are essentially 90 degrees to the prevalent wind, the wind is still too strong, particularly if both those doors were to open at roughly the same time. It would likely blow the other door off, the further door that way off. So during heavy wind, we have to close that one and keep the other one open. So we need to do something over there to add some type of structure, maybe some kind of 90-degree labyrinth turn in there, so that the wind will break, so that people can get in there and use those sliding doors. It would be a good location for a revolving door. That application would work very well right there, but there are just so many injuries in a revolving door. People get their fingers stuck. You've either got to get the ones that you push, which are pretty heavy, and the problem with that is two people go into stalls when it's partway there. The first person pushes it and smacks the other one in the nose with it. Or you get the ones that are motor driven, that are constantly moving, and that of course a lot of electrical draw, but then people can't quite get in there and get the pace right. So they push on it and then it messes up the door. It's a good location. They do well for that type of climate control, preservation, heavy wind load, that type of thing. But then the human factor is really rough on them. And Missoula, it was funny, years ago when they were renovating, Chris said, I can't wait to get rid of my revolving doors on the thing. Let me guess, nosebleeds, fingers caught, off the hinge, oh yeah, that's the issues. We're gonna have to do something a little creative down there to try and make that work better. So the carpet right in front of that area, then the rental cars will probably leave, but we want to go in there and retrace the line. Probably we're going to pull the carpet out and go back to this terrazzo that was original in there. That carpet has some heavy staining. It's also where a lot of water is coming off of bags and boots and everything else that are down there. So we think the terrazzo would actually perform better in that area. We want to leave some carpet in there towards the rental cars to keep the noise down some. The whole area has a drop ceiling, which should mitigate most of the noise. But we think that we'll likely go with some. We'll probably go back to terrazzo down there, and then we'll take the seam that we create with the carpet that's remaining, and we'll probably go ahead and cut that in, like we've done in the entryways, so that we can recess carpet down there when we go to replace that carpet that remains by the rental cars in front of that side door. We definitely want some walk-off carpet when you come in that door to knock the snow off the rental car customers' feet. Because otherwise, when you hit that terrazzo with any snow, it's just a skating rink. The plan for right now will be to convert that over to terrazzo and get most of that bag claim area into terrazzo and then leave some carpet of the old carpet. In a couple of years, we'll replace the new carpet. We think this project's going to cost about $55,000. We want to leave the option open of some carpet down there. We've been talking to the architect a little bit about their thoughts on this. For $55,000, we could likely replace the carpet that's down there with carpet. But like I said, we right now are leaning towards the terrazzo. But either way, that'll be enough budget to get either one of those done.
Any questions for John? And motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as requested for the big spend of $55,000.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, action item 2, LED streetlights.
Yeah, so Love's is going to knock out 3 or 4 of our existing light poles as they widen the road towards their location. They're going to be adding essentially a whole new lane on the inbound side, which will be painted in and out as a right turn lane. So there'll be some painted cross hashing that lines you and then opens into a turn bay, and that'll happen several times into there. Those poles are going to have to come down, and several of them are in their improvement area. So they've got 3 of them. I think there's a total of 8 in that stretch in the road. So there's we want to replace the heads. We've told Love's already, when you take them down, we want you to buy the LED heads to go back up, and because the halogen bulb will inevitably break anyway. But we want them to go to an LED head when they put the poles back up. So they're going to do that, and then we want to take out the other remaining poles and put up the LED heads on those to match the ones we have throughout the remainder of the roadway. And that way we'll have that LED conversion done. The LEDs, I don't know that we've replaced one of those bulbs yet. Have we, Rod, outside? Yeah, so
I didn't trouble with them.
no, they're 6, 7 years old. With those halogens, we're lucky to get 2 years out of them. And we really have seen a surprisingly large energy savings out of those LEDs. And so man-hour-wise, electric-wise, it seems to make sense. It provides a much better lighting. You've probably noticed the yellow lighting on the halogen just isn't crisp enough to really see what's going on. In areas where we've got the LEDs, like in the parking lot, it's almost daylight. I mean, you go out there and you can see, really, really well. It doesn't shadow like that yellow lighting. And so we want to make that conversion. It's a maintenance item, so we can use our CARES dollars like the carpet. It's available for maintenance, and so we have a little bit of that money left. We want to use it up and get these lights converted. About $8,000 worth of lighting to get those heads replaced.
Any questions? Forward motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, airline ordinance rates.
Yes, so as we reported back in June, our airline agreement was expiring at the end of June, and the budget, we amended it at the June meeting to include 2 sets of rates. To the extent that we could get the airline agreement extension signed over the summertime, we would charge the signatory airline rates that we've always charged along with the non-signatory rates. That airline agreement has largely been in place for about 15 years. When I got here roughly 11 years ago, I renegotiated it, cleaned it up a little bit. We've done 1 or 2 other cleanups in the years as it's been extended. This go around, we told the airlines we really don't want to spend a lot of time redrafting the agreement, but we'll extend the same terms for 2 years. At the time, they were not agreeable to that. They really wanted to increase the rates on the non-signatory carriers, which right now is just Allegiant. But if we were to get a summer flight from a Frontier or an Avelo or an American, they would likely also be non-signatory. And Frontier was non-signatory a few years ago, and so we really told them, look, if you look at the growth over the last 15 years, most of our growth has come from the non-signatory carriers. We have largely the same number of seats, in fact, even less seats on most of the other carriers, Delta, Alaska, and United, in the last 15 years. And so, if that's the trend and we see most of our growth coming elsewhere, we think the business agreement should reflect that. We want to keep the airline rates low for those non-signatory carriers. And in fact, we're not seeing a real value in continuing the airline agreement altogether. I've talked with a friend of mine who's still in the consulting industry. I'd worked with him years ago. And that's really a trend you're seeing in a lot of the smaller airports. Is it used to be when you were issuing bonds, you wanted to have a longer term airline agreement to kind of match the bonds, and the underwriters were concerned about that. But nowadays, the industry, it looks at it differently. You have kind of the traffic you have, and some carrier will serve that traffic, one way or the other, most likely. And so they really don't view the airline agreement as having a tremendous amount of value in terms of securing the debt. Now, if you were to go out and do a huge terminal project at a major hub, and it depended on all the connecting traffic, you would definitely want to have an airline agreement that said your airlines are, they're up for the fight for the next 15 years, and if they decide to leave early, there's going to be a big penalty. Of course, we have no connecting traffic here at Great Falls. It's just origin and destination traffic. And so we're not in that situation. The airline agreement really has lost a lot of its value to us over the years. And now that we're debt free, it doesn't really have a great central place in our business. And so we really feel that going to an ordinance makes a lot more sense at this time in our evolution as an airport. And so we've drafted this over the summer, this ordinance which matches the tables that the board adopted for ordinance rates back at the June meeting. This ordinance more or less would be adopted every year, and it just tells how we're going to compute the rates, what the airlines can expect of the airport authority, and instead of being something that would be signed by the airlines and us, it would just be signed by the board as our ordinance rates. And so at the back of the ordinance rates, we have all the tables that show the specific calculations of how we're calculating rates this year. Every year we would replenish that and include it in the operating budget with an updated ordinance if we change anything. And so that's how we would do business from year to year. And we would provide all these materials to the airlines every year. Behind that will be a new lease agreement, because an airline agreement does two things. It first of all sets your rates. It tells what the methodology will be. So you have your methodology, which is what the ordinance will do now. And then you have the real property agreement that says, I lease this square foot, and he leases that square foot, and we're going to maintain it this way, and we're going to pay our bills that way, and we'll provide this amount of insurance. That's the other function that we have to replace, and that's what's on the working session today. So those two documents in the future will work together, and they'll reference each other. All of the property stuff will reside in a new airline lease and operating agreement, and then all of the rate setting stuff will reside in the ordinance, and that'll be adopted every year. So the new lease piece will live on kind of indefinitely. Unless you change your space, there's really no reason to change it. It'll just be basically on a permanent holdover and go. And then this piece will adopt every year with the tables and declaration of how we calculated our rates. We've done everything in compliance with the FAA rates and charges policy. The guidance they give us is that we need to have cost-based rates. We need to be self-sustaining. So we have to generate enough revenues to cover our needs as best we can. Some airports can't do that and rely on taxes. In our case, we've never relied on the taxes. So our rates are self-sustaining. In fact, we should be able to generate a little more reserves than we have in the past. The other large change that we'll have in here is, in the past, the airlines have had differing amounts of control over what capital projects we did. When I got here, they had quite a bit of control. When I modified the agreement back about 10 years ago, we lessened that to just major programs. Now, they won't have any control. They won't vote. If we do a project over $300,000 of local money, we'll notify them that we plan to do that, and they'll have the ability to ask for a call to discuss it. But there won't be an airline vote. There won't be the ability to delay it. Oftentimes, large programs like that, they could delay it for 2 years at a bigger airport or something like that. We won't have any of that language anymore. So really, their voting now is kind of with their 2 feet. We need to provide good cost-related, good cost-based, affordable rates, and we will do that. We need to mind that store. But, if for some reason we're not providing good value for them, then, their opportunity would be to reduce that footprint, here. So that is an important thing that we maintain those rates. We've gone through with the latest information we have now that we've gone through summer, and we've updated these rates tables. So when the board adopts these new rates and charges ordinance, we will adjust the rates as the airlines sign the operating agreement. They will benefit from a slightly lower landing fee. It'll be now $126 based on our current calculations. The board, I think, adopted $137 based on the tables we had 2 months ago. So there is a benefit to the airlines if they sign the agreement. We will do a rate adjustment, and then they also will get the benefit of, at the end of the year, they will be able to get a settlement. So we'll go through and put in our audited numbers. We charge them all year based on the budget. We'll put in our audited numbers at the end of the year, and we'll true up with them so that they'll get the benefit of that at the end of the year. But the other big change in here is we're going to segregate the carriers slightly differently. The original airline agreement, we made some modifications to it, but it didn't really incorporate the cargo carriers as a signatory carrier. But then at the same time, many years ago, there was an informal agreement with the airport director then, and in the airport, that we would charge the airlines the signatory, the FedExes of the world, the signatory rate. In this agreement, we'll let the FedEx sign the agreement, and they'll get the benefit of the lower rate. If you don't have an agreement with us, if you don't sign one of these agreements with us, and you don't rent any space, you'll pay a penalty rate of 50% more, which is kind of like what we're doing now, a non-signatory rate. So some of the carriers, like a charter or someone that doesn't have any space rented here at the airport, will continue to pay that higher rate, which is really comparable to what we've always charged. So I do think it's this ordinance is an important step forward for us in terms of growth. Because like I said, I think increasingly what we're seeing in Montana is a plentitude of airlines serving the market itinerantly, just for the summer, just 3 flights a week, just here and there, maybe only weekend service, maybe a season of 10 flights, like Sun Country did in Bozeman, or Kalispell, they even did less than that, a season of 6 flights. Those types of operations, this type of agreement will allow us greater flexibility to offer them a rate discount than what we've traditionally had.
So you think this puts us in a better position, related to the whole problem you started the whole meeting with? In the future, you think this puts us in a better position?
This gives us far more flexibility on both ends. It gives us the ability to adjust the rates. If we did have another massive COVID spike and we just can't cover the bills, the ordinance allows us to come back to the board and adjust the rates midstream. It allows us to provide as much subsidy to the airline rate as we want. So we have more flexibility because we're not tying our hands down with, this year we're going to share 60% of our parking revenue. That's kind of like what the airline agreement has now. It says we'll provide X subsidy. This we can adjust every year. We might decide in a couple of years that our parking revenue, now that we're keeping all of it, is such that we can lower the rates even more. So we can do that from year to year and adjust. And I've told the airlines, look, my goal is to have the cheapest airline rates I can have. The whole reason that we're out there doing Loves and we're out there doing Ashley Furniture, and we're doing these other developments is because, I would love to charge you no landing fee. I would love to say that we can cover our bills with other revenue and make it as affordable as possible. And that's our goal. So, by doing this, it allows us to really modify over time, what we share with the airlines and how we collect from the airlines and adjust it better to the business that we're actually seeing.
What did they say about it? They're on board with it?
Nothing. Yeah, we're getting the silent treatment, which is not atypical. So we haven't gotten, we did have several of the airlines did send in signed copies, but we had told them early on that for us to execute the signatory agreements, that we were going to require a majority of enplaned passengers. So we wanted to have at least a majority of the enplaned passengers on board, because what that would do is if one of the airlines didn't sign it, and we had that airline agreement in place, and they would get penalized 50% on the landing fee, which is a much higher cost basis. And we didn't want that to happen if only one airline thought it was a good idea to sign an agreement. So we really told them, you know, you guys got to go amongst yourself and solicit friends and you know, come back to us with a majority, you know, or we're not interested in penalizing the other guys. You know, so we didn't get a plumitude of carriers by employments, so we told them we would go to an ordinance at this meeting.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, a motion to approve the airline ordinance rate. Halls?
Make a motion to approve as recommended.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous approval.
Thank you.
Okay, hangar lease.
Laura, do you want to handle this one?
Sure. This is just another, one of the standard leases down there in the GA area beyond Great Falls Jet Center. When Red Horse finished you guys have the exhibit attached in there, and so when they finished the pavement down there that they were working on, it opened up some great spots for private hangars. And this first row, the highlighted one that I have there, that first row, a 60 by 60 fits perfectly in there. And so that's what we were approached with, is a gentleman who wants to do a 60 by 60. Jerry McCann is his name. He actually is saying, let me see how easy it is to develop at the airport and in town here, and if it's easy enough, I'll build another one and sell it, and maybe build another one and build another one. But he just wants to see what our process is like here, and if it causes any problems or not. I'll tell you that in the last month, we've had several people interested in building there. So we very well may have another one next month. Jerry, we may get through this and he may say, go ahead, give me the next one, and I'll get going on that. So, but we have 2 or 3 other people that are looking at 60 by 60s as well. So we could be filling that up quickly and then flipping over to the other side. We have a different rate in this section than we've had in the existing section because of the utility work that we did down there. So for the footprint of the building, it's 20 cents a square foot annually. Everybody here is paying 12 cents a square foot annually, but if they want to hook into the utilities down there, then they're going to have to pay the 20 cents as well, and nobody has taken us up on that. I know they all stubbed it in when they built their hangars, but nobody's taken us up on that yet. So that produces, for that footprint, ingress, egress, the driveway on the other side, it's about $16.56 annually for that spot, okay? Just one.
Annually?
Annually. Yeah, these are not high dollar.
Pretty cheap.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and as you can imagine, the difference, if some of the existing hangars, which are some of them are smaller, did connect to the utilities, the difference is $200 or $300 a year. So, you know, and I don't know how many of you were on the board back when this rate was adopted, but you know, it was pretty controversial, and you know, at the time, and I really recommended that, you know, we just keep one rate and maybe raise the 12 cents a little bit and stay, you know, at one rate. But the board's desire at the time was to recover some of the cost of these utilities. And so that's where we came up with the split rate. And I think that was actually, if we were going to have a higher rate, I think that was a good decision, was to allow them to stay at the lower rate and decide how much the bathroom is worth to them if they want to put it in. You know, so I mean, I think it's a fair rate structure. And we are starting to see some demand at the 20 cents level. So
What's the lease say when they leave? Do we take possession of the hangar?
the way all of our leases are set up, we take control of the improvements. You know, traditionally, what we've been doing is encouraging the tenants to reinvest in their infrastructure and then extending the lease in exchange for that reinvestment. And I think that's the best policy.
So we don't have to pay them anything?
No.
Just come, if they
Yeah.
left early, it just.
Right, if they would leave early, they would forfeit, you know, the lease, and then the improvements would probably be with their lender, would be my guess, until that got resolved.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same policy.
And it's prepaid, they pay up front.
The rent, yeah, they just pay annually, yeah. Actually, they pay monthly.
Annually.
Oh, they do pay annually, okay, yeah.
So, they could pay monthly if they wanted to, most of them pay annually. Just a couple of other points with it. These existing hangars over here, those parcels are not squared up, so they're paying 12 cents annually, and they're only paying for their footprint and their pavement for ingress and egress from their hangars. So if you think that's small,
Some of those are. You know,
they're not, I mean, it'd be nice to square it up, but that's a discussion for another day.
You've got a lot of, you know, what you would call uneconomic remainders over there, where you have space between the hangars that we can't do
Yeah,
anything
but
with.
eventually you're gonna get the hangar and you rent it out for lot one.
Maybe. We'll see. The only other point here, obviously, we recommend and would like to go forward with this, but the only other point to make with this is this, you guys did not see this in the work session last time. We talked with Mick, our attorney, and made sure that this was all kosher, but we want to be able to move a little faster on these particular hangars, especially like this is the season where you're trying to get concrete on the ground and get going, and they make decisions pretty quickly. Because we have a board-approved lease, area, you guys, you've
And the
approved
board-
all of this all the way along.
The
He
board's-
said this does not need to go to 2 readings. that
And
we
the
can
board
take it right to the
specifically
board.
set that rate at 20
Yeah.
cents, you know, prior. So we've not done anything new. We've done everything the board has already adopted.
Yeah, so that's how you would see these coming to you in the future,
Or
in
coming
this
in next
area.
month.
If it's something else, then you'll still have the 2 readings, but just for this preset GA area for the hangars, that's the route that we would
And the
take.
layout is exactly the same that was adopted in the master plan, and then was adopted again when we
Several
did,
times.
when we did the project layout last year to make the improvements.
Side question, why do we even have to come back to the board?
He actually said that. He said, we don't even need to take it to the board at all,
Yeah.
but we're just making you aware
The
of it.
reason I like to bring it to the board is we have a limited number of sites, and so, you know, if we had someone out there that wanted, you know, that in their mind wanted that one spot, or wanted 4 or 5 and wanted to build all the hangars, you know, we want this to be a notice to them that, well, in fact, we got a call, and Rod and I met with another potential developer yesterday, who, you know, is feeling the heat now because they want one of those. And they're like, wow, well, I see they're starting to go, you know, what other leads do you have? Well, we've got several. I mean, if you're interested, you should definitely, you know, engage now.
They
And
can
so
move
that-
quickly.
Yeah, and so that's why, is we're always going to be limited on, you know, the number of spots we have. So I think it is good practice to come to one meeting and say, it's up, you know, here it goes, you know, so that everyone knows. And they could show up and say, well, I'll give you 40 cents for that land, you know, or $1 per square foot for that land.
Well, I just kind of think, I mean, the parameters have been established.
Right.
And if somebody comes tomorrow, comes Friday, and they want to hang it right then, they shouldn't have to wait until the next month.
Right.
It should be a simple process that yeah, we can run with it.
And technically, we could kind of do that. Like, I have Jerry's signed agreement in my
Alright.
office. As soon as we leave this meeting, John's gonna sign it, and I'm gonna get it over to him, and he's gonna be ready to roll.
And we
So-
just received that about, what, 2 weeks ago?
No, I've had it for a while, because I had it before our break.
Before the break? Oh.
But it would have been nice for him especially
Yeah,
to
yeah.
sign it
As
and
part of
move
the
forward.
record, you can make it part of the consent agenda or.
Yeah, that's a good point too, we could.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it would still be waiting for a meeting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it just a matter of making notice that this is what we're going to do? I mean, what's the legalities of just sending out an email to all the board?
You know, you're
Saying, have you got any issues with
You're
this?
probably right. You know, I mean, if we were down to, you know, I mean, the FAA is always concerned that you have more opportunity than you have real estate. Right now, we don't really have that. You know, when we get down to one site or maybe even 2 sites, we're going to be there. You know, but, I mean, that's not far away. We only have 5 60 by 60 spots. You know, and so, yeah, I mean, I'm certainly up for the board's discretion. If you would rather we just execute these, I think we have the latitude to do
Or
it.
you can maybe make it part of your director's report.
Yeah.
That
Something
way
to that
it's,
effect. I mean, it's, I
It
just.
would be nice.
Yeah.
that
We're
way
just
you-
trying to keep.
And that's how we approached the Ashley Furniture site, because we had told the board a number of times, we're gonna start doing our RV storage. You know, we've got millings coming off our road, we're gonna place them, we're gonna rent these out. We never intended to bring back each RV lease to you guys. Well, it just so happened, the first RV lease took the entire lot. And so we executed that over the summer and moved on. But this one, because it is aviation related, we wanted to have a little bit more, you know, notice that we're starting to lease these
I
out.
think if the lawyer says it doesn't need formal approval, then just making it part of the director's report should be fine.
Okay?
I just think that's a management function.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
So we won't take action on that, since the lawyer says we don't need to.
Well, I'd still like you to take action on it just for today, because it's on there, please.
Just to please you, because it's
Yes,
on the
please.
agenda. Okay. Any further
Is there such
discussion?
thing as a we don't care vote? Are we gonna
Mine.
A question I have is, you mentioned that you referred to Jerry as a developer. So is it his intention to occupy the hangar, or what is his intention to do when he builds the hangar?
He has aircraft. I don't know.
He's gonna occupy it. This is for him.
Yeah.
So I think he called him a developer because he said he would do another one. And obviously he's done some of that in other airports, but
I just wanted to make sure that it fit the definition of the airport minimum standards, wherein, if I recall them correctly, the intent of hangars being built by individuals is not to make them available for rent. Am I remembering that correctly?
I'd have to look at that. Do you remember, Laura?
Because then that starts to get into the FBO
right.
business, and
There's no
that's a different
commercial uses down there. I'm not sure on the actual renting because everything's assignable in that way, but I'll take a look at that.
Okay. Just
But that's not what he's planning on doing. This is for him.
How does that impact what Jan Blumenthal does with his hangars? So that's a
like the
commercial
Yeah.
operation, correct?
And he
At
rents.
most airports, and I haven't looked at those in a while, at most airports, the line's typically drawn at fuel.
Yeah,
You know, and
fuel.
that's what I've always seen, is you can't fuel, you know, it's not so much that you can't rent out a hangar. I've never seen it written that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
But, you know, typically, you know, you have to provide 3 services in order to fuel an aircraft for hire. So you'd have to provide, you know, aircraft repair, flight school, or hangarage, or, you know, what am I missing?
Well, my bigger
Avionics.
point, my bigger point was is just to make sure that Jerry's aware of the current minimum standards.
Yeah.
I've sent it to him already, the
Okay,
copy.
Very good.
Yeah. But we'll have to look at that in terms of hangar rental.
Yeah, I just don't think it's in there, but.
It could not be. I mean, over the course, well, you all know, I mean, many of you have been involved with pilots. I mean, over the course of owning a hangar or even owning an airplane, unfortunately, they go in and out of service, and, you know, pilots go in and out of service. I mean, if you own either a plane or a hangar, chances are good that over some period of time you won't be flying it, and you won't have an airplane, you'll have an empty hangar. So, I mean, I would think, and I would, you know, we would want to make it possible for people to rent out either vacant space in their hangar, you know, if they can fit 2 planes in there. I mean, even a small plane like this, you know, I've seen guys shove a glider in there, taken apart, plus a plane, you know, and then a buddy's, you know.
Wasn't there a caveat that it had to be an aviation-related business?
Well, that's for
I think
sure.
that's
An FAA
Yeah,
rule.
that's-
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think that would cover.
Can't store.
But, you know, obviously
no.
we need to protect the owners and-
But, you know, the minimum standards are in place.
Yeah.
And if he's got a copy of it, that's
Yeah.
all it's asking.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, in combination with the word used developer, so.
Yeah.
Someone want to make a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Stop recording. Okay, that's the final action item. Any other items any board member would like to bring forward today? None?
None.
Okay. Any from the public? Okay, with no further business to come before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. And we will take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 20 after, according to that clock.